Worked for InTuition for over 27 years, a long time. Before that, I was working on newspapers for 22 years. And then I went overseas a lot and worked in other countries teaching English, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Spain, Ecuador, Egypt. So lots of experience with overseas teaching after I did my TEFL course, which I did in middle age. Great time to do it. Um, and it's been a great pleasure working for InTuition because I was so happy with them. I didn't see any need to join any other agency. They're very professional. And it's been a wonderful experience. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm still doing it.
What do you enjoy most about hosting and teaching InTuition students?
It's got to be the students, because you really do, with a one-to-one, you really do get to know about their lifestyles, their family, their hopes, their dreams. And it's an absolute pleasure because you've got them I've had them from all nationalities. It's just a joy getting to know them, and you really do get to know them on a one-to-one basis.
Can you tell us a story about a student who really made an impression on you during their stay?
So many. I think when you've got them for a few weeks, you find whatever their hobbies are, I always try to accommodate it, or them. I had a Japanese student, and I said, would you like to try yoga? And she said yes. I took her along to a yoga class. She was better than the teacher, never done it before. And that was it. She's now a yoga teacher, and I get postcards from Rishikesh in India every year. So that made a real difference. Then I had another student who was only with me for a week, and she enjoyed London so much and her experience. She handed in a notice and got her job to transfer her from the Bank of France to the Bank of France in London. And she worked here for 2 years. So I saw her periodically and helped her settle in. So that was a big change. And another one that springs to mind was a student, very, very shy. I always like them to meet my friends one afternoon a week. She was terrified of meeting them and having to speak with all these different people. And apparently it preyed on her mind all week. And after she met them, she was so pleased that she could understand everybody. She said that she really wanted to do a course, proficiency course, but she didn't think she was good enough. And I absolutely encouraged her. Anyway, she went home, she did it, passed, of course, and sent me a nice big bottle of wine. That was very kind of her. So there's so many, and you do make a great difference. You might not think so at the time, but you really can make a great difference to students and their lives, which also has a knock-on effect with their brothers, sisters, and children.
And what advice would you give to a new InTuition teacher?
I know this sounds really trite, but what I would say is, it's definitely teaching and host tutoring. You've got to think it's not about you, it's about them. And you represent Britain. And, and it's really good. You've got to keep that in mind. But a silly tip is, please write your menus down, what you're going to give them every day. Because when I didn't do this, I'd wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning thinking, we ate this yesterday, we can't eat this today, what are we going to eat? So really, what I do now to stop myself, get that out the way, I write down what I'm going to give them every day. If they've got a special interest, I'll try and accommodate it. And also, if they're from a certain region, I'll go into Wikipedia and run off information, one each, so that we can talk about where they live on the first day, because that can often get them quite enthusiastic. But I think the main thing is to really get them to relax and not worry about making mistakes, because if you're tense, you can't speak. So I really like them to think of me as a mum or a sister, so that they feel relaxed enough to make mistakes.
Can you tell us a top English learning tip in 30 seconds?
I think the best learning tip is vocabulary. Without words, you can't communicate. So my number one is when we come across a new word, I write it down. And then by the end of the session, there's usually about 10 to 15. I tear it off. I don't want them to translate it. I give it to them and I tell them I want them to put it into a sentence. And by doing that, they've got to look it up, put it in a sentence, and then read it, write it down, and then read it out to me the next day. So then they're exposed to the word 4 or 5 times, because as we know, if you get a new word, it goes in one ear, out the other, and it's practice, practice, practice. So repetition. And that really, so by the end of the week, they've probably got another 100 words. Of course, you've got to balance this with their level. And if it's too much, then you lower the number of words. But this works extremely well because of the repetition aspect.